Fine song right there. Well, I suppose we should talk about it. Raw was like there was a great Bret Hart, Vince McMahon segment.
Yes. A
segment for the goddamn ages. There was also 3 WrestleMania rematches, all with fuck finishes. What a letdown that was.
I suppose. I don't know. I honestly didn't care. I did not care about Cena Big Show at all. I was actually opposed to seeing Hunter Orton again.
Yeah.
And Shawn and Jericho was disappointing. So there you go.
We had Austin coming out and doing a promo.
He was wearing, as you noted, a plain black T-shirt and like the nicest pair of jeans I've ever seen him in.
Yeah.
And he was in great shape.
He was.
He was very lean.
Yes.
And he came out. He let the crowd go what for a while. He got some beers. Started talking about classic Mania matches. Talked about his match against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 when he passed out in a pool of blood. And he said, passing out in a pool of my own blood is something I'll never forget. Which is amazing since he was passed out at the time. He then said, Bret, and this is also a quote, he is one of the best cats I've ever been in the ring with. For some reason, when he said cats, I laughed. So he said at the same time, he had fought Vince several times, and he enjoyed what Vince brought to the ring, not athleticism or mat skills, but meanness and ruthlessness, and he always brought his A-game. Please note, he did not talk about how he was old and broken down and may die. He's a better promoter than TNA. So he said there'd be a contract signing there tonight, and Vince was always trying to screw people, so he would be there to make sure he was not screwed. And suddenly, John Cena's music hit, and there's a lot of cheers, but also a fairly vocal hatred for Cena. And I was very excited for this segment, and then Cena came out, and Austin teased a stunner, and then just left.
Yeah.
I was let down.
We had Big Show and Cena, the first of 2 WrestleMania rematches we really didn't need to see. And basic little match, and Cena goes for his comeback. Dave comes out on the ramp, and Cena walked into a choke slam, and I thought, there you go, Dave fucked Cena. But no, Cena kicked out. Then he went for the FU. Show slipped behind, supposedly raking his eyes, they claimed, but
no, they're supposedly raking his eyes, and I think the idea was supposed to be that Dave distracted John again. But really,
so
everyone...
it took 2 distractions to beat the guy?
It just looked like Big Show slipped behind on his own and hit the choke slam, I guess.
This finish was stupid.
Yeah.
John Cena looked like a dunderfuck here.
He got beat by the Big Show clean.
Yeah.
And Dave got in the ring to gloat for a while, and I think Dave was growing his hair out, which is an odd time for a new look 2 weeks before Mania.
I always hate that where, like, the idea is, well, we want Batista to screw Cena. But everyone knows if he distracts him and he gets chokeslammed, it's going to be the pin. So we'll have him kick out, and then we'll do a second distraction. I always hate shit like that. It's overkill.
It's very.
Everybody saw him get distracted. He walked into the chokeslam. 1, 2, 3. It tells a good story. Just move the fuck on. You don't need to have an extra fool there for the people because you just made your guy look like an idiot. People think I'm biased towards TNA. There was shit on this Raw show. I'll be happy to talk about it. We had Sheamus and Evan Bourne. Sheamus just killed him quickly and then cut a great promo. In fact, this was so much better than Hunter's promo on Sheamus last week.
Mm-hmm.
So much better.
No, Sheamus is the man.
Yeah, just done a good job here.
He said he'd been watching WWE all his life. He's always been fascinated by the stars, but by one in particular. A man so selfish. I thought it was funny that was the first word he used. So selfish, so ruthless, so vicious, he would use a sledgehammer to win his matches. He beat Austin, he beat The Rock, he beat Cena, he beat Michaels, he beat Undertaker. He was talking about Hunter, of course. He had won countless world championships. On the other hand, in less than a year, I have ended careers, I've dominated Raw, and I've become WWE champion. And he said he was supposed to defend the title at Mania, but Hunter had ruined that. But he thanked Hunter for that because he was the one he wanted to face at Mania all along. He was the man who would catapult me to superstardom in WWE. He said Hunter had said that Mania would be a turning point in Sheamus' career, but instead it would be a turning point in Hunter's career because after the beating I give you, you will never be the same. And he said the warrior bows to no king, and the Celtic warrior will take your throne. This segment was a win.
Good stuff by the Keltman. And we had Sean meeting with Austin, asked if he thought he could beat The Undertaker, and Steve said, I think you can, but I don't think you will. Sean was sad and said that everyone thought he was going to retire after Mania 98 when Austin beat him, but he proved him wrong. He was going to do the same in 2 weeks. Vowed to beat Jericho. Jericho showed up. Reminded him he was the champion. Thanked Austin for giving him another chance to humiliate Shawn. Shawn said, Undertaker sent me a message on SmackDown. I'm going to send him a message tonight by destroying you, Chris Jericho. And then after he left, Jericho tried to get out of the match and said, why not go drink some beers like the old days, have some laughs. And Austin went, ha, 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 and then it wasn't funny anymore. And he said, get your ass to the ring. Get, actually, is what he said. Maurice and Kelly non-title. Better or worse
than
the shitty one on Impact?
It's a tough call.
No one seems to have the answer to this profound question.
It's a question for the ages. I don't know. It sucked, for sure. And then Maurice won. Then she tried to beat her up more. And then Gail and Eve saved. And then Michelle and Layla saved. Like, I need to see Michelle twice a week. And this is clearly, it was time to plug the random Mania all-women's match or whatever they're going to do. And this beating continued. I was getting less and less interested in WrestleMania by the second. Even Michelle had a stare down. Nobody cared. No one cared. And then there was a horribly mistimed spot with Michelle and even Layla, and it sucked. I think this was worse than the Impact segment.
Michaels and Jericho, big pop for the opening bell, and then they had an average match. It was all right. If this was really the last Shawn Michaels Chris Jericho match ever, very sad. So Shawn went for his comeback, and Jericho just walked out. And they counted him out of the ring. Mm-hmm. A COR finish.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. And
then they immediately played Edge's music to make us forget. He ran down to the ring. Shawn Michaels, like RVD, vanished. Perhaps they spent the rest of the night together, doing something other than watching either of these shows. And that was that. And Edge speared him, got his heat back for getting hit with the belt Friday. I have absolutely no idea why. But he did.
Why he got the heat back? Or I asked why they did the belt thing on Friday.
That too.
I was rendered null and void by this.
Yes.
It made even less sense when this was the follow-up. So, yeah.
This was a night where the same person may as well have been booking both shows. At least until the Raw main event when the WWE bookers churned.
Impact would never do anything that great, yeah. But again, a very mundane match. There's not much difference between this match and the dark match that Jericho and Edge had after SmackDown last week. And then they did the fuck finish.
No, God, no. Yeah. The Edge-Jericho dark match, Jesus. They may have been working backwards. That match was so slow. We had the announcement that it was going to be Orton, Cody, and Ted in a three-way.
Who could care?
At Mania.
Who in the world could possibly care? This is... Most of the programs in WWE are going great. This one is such a complete disaster.
This is fizzled like... nobody's business. I was trying to figure out if Kofi was now more over than Orton. Wasn't entirely positive.
I don't think so.
But you're pausing.
I'm pausing. It's possible. I'm not sure. I'm planning.
Well, speaking of silence, I was in utter silence when Randy Orton then did a promo and said, I begrudgingly respect my opponent tonight, Triple H. I take that man seriously. Whereas... I do not take Teddy and Cody seriously at all.
Yeah.
Who wrote this line? Hey, say what you will about Vince Russo. Even that guy could never write a line this stupid. This was astounding. Who wrote that line?
I don't know. So he said they would find that without him, they were absolutely nothing. All I know is I'm making plans for Mania, like the women's match, I'll go to the bathroom. Doing this three-way here, I would go to the kitchen for food. I'm planning the stuff I want to avoid.
Then we had Hunter and Orton.
Speaking of matches I wanted to avoid.
Actually, I was trying to figure out, was this better than WrestleMania last year? I enjoyed it more. I can tell you that.
It probably was better than their Mania match. I just like there was a point where Randy Orton had Triple H on the floor. And he laid his legs on either the stairs or the guardrail, but he had an elevated DDT on the floor. This should have been a 6-week injury angle. Instead, it was the pre-commercial moment.
Yes.
It was, can Hunter come back for this? Be back in 3 minutes to find out. And guess what? He did.
So Hunter was about to get the win when DiBiase and Rhodes hit the ring and attacked Hunter. Then they attacked Orton. Then Sheamus ran in, and it set up Triple H and Orton against Rhodes, DiBiase, and Sheamus for next week. They have killed Randy Orton. Mm-hmm. People don't hate him. Nor do they love him.
No.
They have now become completely indifferent to Randy Orton. That is an amazing fact.
In a month? 2 months?
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so...
I've never seen... Think of how long... I mean, it wasn't like... no one's going to talk about legacy in the same breath of the Four Horsemen or even Evolution. But think of how long these three goofballs were together, and they fucked the breakup so...
It is the worst breakup I've ever seen.
It's terrible.
Ever. I cannot think of anything even close to a worse breakup.
I'll even say this. I prefer Beer Money just becoming heels with absolutely no reason whatsoever. They're just now suddenly heels. That is superior to how they fucked this up. At least this had potential. Fucked up. Gorgeous George going to the Hall of Fame.
They are a really, really great video for him, including a line where his wife said he was a clean-cut wrestler, but he wasn't making any money, so I told him to get dirty.
I say, hey, that's the story she tells. She's told that story since the very beginning.
I absolutely believe it. And they also, my favorite part of the entire video, there was a news clipping from the Daily Times Herald in Dallas that included the phrase, and it was just sitting at the top of the page, so I don't know if this was the name of the column or what, but it included the phrase, the vulgar ozone. Caught my eye, wrote it down, want to start a rock band and have that be their name.
We had Batista and Kofi, and by the way, I've been told the Stu Hart video package is awesome.
I bet it is.
Batista and Kofi. The key to this match is that, well, number one, Batista killed him. But
I watched this entire match. I wrote down Dave won, and then realized, wait a minute, he's bleeding. What the hell happened? I had to go back and watch it. I cared so little.
Dave took actually, I thought this was perhaps the most entertaining wrestling match on the show, to be honest with you. Dave killed this poor fucker. Kofi accidentally kicked him in the head and split him open, and the ref was going to put on the gloves, the rubber gloves, and Big Dave looked at him as if to say, I will take those gloves, put them on my hands, and shove both fists up your ass. And that was the end of the ref attempting to close that cut. Batista killed the man dead, bleeding from the head. It was a fantastic visual.
The timing could not have been better because this kick was literally the last spot Kofi hit before Dave cut him off and killed him.
Yes.
He hit this kick, and the next move was a springboard where Dave caught him. And Dave got kicked in the face. Blood immediately began, like right between the eyes. Blood immediately started pouring everywhere, and he stumbled backwards, and he checked the cut. It was bleeding profusely, and he raised his face. I don't even know if he meant to do this, but there was a look of rage, hatred, devastation about to ensue, and he shoved the ref out of his way, and he killed Kofi with death.
Yes.
It was the best thing I've seen since that one time on SmackDown when Matt hit Brock Lesnar with a chair and cut him open, and then he had to wrestle him in the very next segment. And Brock was pacing in the ring like a tiger, and Matt came out just pissing himself.
Yes.
This is the best thing I've seen since that.
Then we had the Bret Hart Vince McMahon contract signing. One for the ages. I knew this was going to be great.
This was one...
I knew this was going to be great when Bret limped out, and then he had to get into the ring. And I'm trying to think of like maybe if you tried to have Granny get in the ring. Actually, I bet she could probably do a better job. He made it appear that getting in the ring was the hardest thing he'd done in 52 years.
He should have had a gold medal for getting in the ring like this.
Yes.
He made it look such an amazing athletic feat. So, yes, he was... This was a segment where it was the opposite of a swerve. I could have predicted almost everything that happened here, moment for moment. I could have predicted the promos they would cut almost word for word. I would have been 100% right, and I would have been fine with that. That's what I wanted to see. It was still... I knew what was going to happen, and it was great. So, to recap, Vince, before anything else got going, Austin said, look, I'm in the Hall of Fame. It's the most important thing in my life. A few weeks ago, you said Stu Hart was deserving to go in the Hall of Fame, and he is. So you're going to put Stu back in, or I'm going to whip your ass. And Vince said, no, I have no problem with that. Stu can go in the Hall of Fame. That means the entire Hart family will be there for the Hall of Fame and at Mania. Every member of that family is a dysfunctional derelict, except Bret, who is a dysfunctional handicapped derelict. He gave Bret the option of signing the contract, of not signing the contract and proving that he is a coward, or signing and taking his beating like a man at WrestleMania. And he wanted him clear that it was ironclad. If he signs it and did not show, then Vince would sue him for everything he was worth. Bret said he can and will beat Vince, but he didn't want it to be a match. And he said Vince didn't want it either. This is going to be a fight, a massacre, complete annihilation. So he wants it no holds barred. This is a nitpick, but Shawn and Taker is no DQ, no count out. Isn't that just the same thing?
Sure.
Okay. So Vince said, hell yeah, just like Austin. He said, 13 years ago, Bret screwed Bret. And then for the past few months, I've enjoyed screwing Bret. But now, once again, Bret has screwed Bret. So Bret signed his contract, and he signed forever and ever and ever, and his name only has 8 letters, so I assume he actually wrote Bret the Hitman Hart on there. And he signed it immediately, and he handed it over to Vince, and Vince paused. He looked at the paper, he looked at Bret, and he looked at the pen, and he didn't quite do the Vince gulp, but he put this off forever, and then finally scribbled his name and threw it down, and then they cut to Bret, and people were talking about Bret's facials at the end of this segment, but the moment Vince signed the contract, they cut to Bret, and Bret's sitting there, and he's got his baseball hat and his sunglasses on, and this content smile. For the first time in 13 years, Bret Hart's soul was at peace at that moment. So Vince signed, and Austin said that was that, and they played his music, and he left, and Vince was staring at Austin, and then Austin cut the music off and said, wait, I got one more thing to tell you. I'll let Bret tell you. And he left, and Vince turned around and sat down, and the cast was sitting on the table, and Bret was sitting there with his chin resting in his palm, just staring at Vince. An amazing moment.
Yes.
Just amazing. And Bret let it sink in for a while, and said, I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm glad John Cena knows people in the stunt world who could pull that trick off. Said, I'm 100%, and if you try to back out of this match now, I'll sue you for everything you're worth. So it turns out Vince screwed Vince. And Bret was going to leave, but Vince prepped like he was going to hit him from behind, and so Bret turned around and whacked him with the cast and knocked him over the table.
Yeah.
A Hall of Fame segment.
When he turned around, when Vince slowly swiveled his chair around and the cast was just sitting there. First off, they had like the best camera angle ever.
Yeah.
They had the best camera. Because they didn't show the cast on the table. They just show Vince turning around, and right when he's about to see the cast, they cut to a shot of the cast.
Yes.
And you saw the cast for the first time, and you saw his look at the exact moment. It was perfect.
It was a look of, oh no, I am doomed. That's not supposed to be there. And if it's there, that means it's not on his leg.
I don't like to bury TNA, but can you imagine if they had to do this segment?
First of all...
Well, let's just pretend that they were going to do it right, though. They were going to recreate this entire segment. You know how many missed camera angles?
Oh, God.
They would have, missed the cast.
They would have shown, put a camera under the table of Bret taking the cast off.
Yeah, something.
And then Taz would say, look, he's taking his cast off. And in fact, even if they had shot it right, they would have cut to that one camera angle, and you would have heard Tenay reading from his script, screaming, the cast is off! Bret Hart's leg is okay! Because he needed to point it out for their stupid fans.
So, yeah. That was the Raw show. A great, great angle to cap off a show that the rest of it was not all that great. But a great angle, and it was the angle that absolutely ate Impact's lunch.
It did. Oh, God, it did.
What can you do?
And, Impact did not do an 0.5, so I did not do a little dance, but I think the day is coming.